Tommy, here's how you came to me. So I live in Westbeth. His great aunt, Sally Gross, brilliant dancer, choreographer, teacher, meets me in the elevator years ago. You should interview my grandnephew, Tommy Kail. He's a really good director. Oh, I will, Sally, absolutely. A few years go by. Did you see In the Heights? No, I missed In the Heights, Sally. I can't believe it. That's too bad. You know who directed it? Tommy Kail, my nephew. You should really interview him. I said, I will, absolutely. Years go by. I'm in the elevator. Sally, did you see Hamilton? I said, as a matter of fact, Sally, I'm seeing it tonight at the Public Theater. She said, you know who directed it? I said, I know, Tommy Kail. So now I'm sitting at the Public Theater. Alexander Hamilton. I'm blown away. I call Sally. Sally, what a fantastic job Tommy Kail, your nephew, did. Do you know how I can reach him? She said, you've got his email. I gave it to you 4 years ago. I emailed Tommy Kail. He said he would come. Now, so I want to thank Sally, who's now in dance heaven. She left the planet on July. Thank you, Sally. He's here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally.
Okay, so my first question is, actually, I can't stand it. How does a nice Jewish white boy like you get to direct hip-hop?
The great question. You know, the thing that I think Lin and I bonded over, Lin and I met in 2002. I went to Wesleyan University and graduated in '99, and there was this freshman that I'd heard about, but did not talk to because he was a freshman. And I was not a theater major. I didn't study theater at Wesleyan. I started doing theater in the student theater my junior year. So I took one class in all my 4 years, which was in script analysis. That was it. So Lin was this sort of prodigious talent that I'd heard about, but in the way that you hear about a kid doing like a crazy production of Jesus Christ Superstar, and you don't think about it. I graduated. A couple of my friends that I'd started a theater company with were still there. So
was this from the drama bookstore?
This was the drama bookshop, yeah.
And the name of that company was?
That was Backhouse Productions.
Right.
So
would you tell about that also when we circle back, how you started that company?
So Lin wrote this early version of In the Heights in 2000. I don't know if you guys remember 2000 because you were one. So Lin wrote this sort of proto version of Heights. This character, Snavi, was in 3 scenes. There was no grandmother, there was no salon. Lin directed it and wasn't in it. My friends saw it and said, hey, when we actually get this theater company going, we should find this kid. And so they sent me a demo CD in 2000. So 2 years later, I met Lin. We started working together. And Lin and I, you know, I'm a few years older than Lin. I was born in 1977 and Lin was born in 1980. So we basically grew up listening to the same music. And if you listen to Hamilton closely, the hip hop references you know, are really sort of concentrated around 1988 to 1995, which is when we were listening to, you know, very sort of similar kind of music. And so it was just something that I felt like I had an ability to be relatively fluent in. It was something that Lin understood, and Lin was as influenced by Camelot and Les Mis and Gypsy and Rent as he was these other things. I didn't come to theater in the same way that he did, so I was discovering those things a lot later. But my feeling is, if something is true, then it fits. We didn't say, wouldn't it be a great elevator pitch to have Alexander Hamilton, you know, speak in rhyme with you know, real propulsion? It was, here's a man who had too many ideas. Here's a man who had more words per line than anybody else, and it just felt like the way to express that was through hip hop, and so that just felt very organic and natural, and it just, the first song kind of came out of that, and then we built from there.
Now, didn't you have a company, or not a company, but what was the name of the, oh shoot, Freestyle Love Supreme?
Freestyle Love Supreme, yes.
Now, what was that?
It is still.
It is.
So Freestyle Love Supreme, has anybody here seen Freestyle Love Supreme? I like those 3 people the best. So Freestyle Love Supreme is an improvisational hip-hop show that I created with my friend Anthony Viniziali, who had started Backhouse Productions with me in the basement of the drama bookshop. There's this little theater called the Arthur Seelan Theater there. It's a little black box, about 50 seats. Yeah. It was a white box before we got there. We painted it black. They gave us 50 seats. And we just started making theater. So we didn't pay rent. This guy, Alan Hubby, had seen an early show that we had done. and he just wanted to have the energy of a young company down there.
Fabulous.
And God bless him, he gave us a desk and a phone and a computer and a home. And so the way that we earned our bones and could stay there was by programming something, 50 weeks of the year. So we were just constantly looking for material and for new things. One of the ideas that sparked out of a rehearsal from Heights, when we were just producing it down there, was to try to take what we loved about improvisational comedy and what we loved about freestyling, the form of sort of spontaneously making up rhyme, and merge them. And so freestyle was born right around the time of In the Heights. So about a year after Heights, there was a big blackout in 2003. That was the day of the first Freestyle of Supreme show. And I was actually away for the weekend, for that week. And it was kind of like Cradle Will Rock. They were supposed to do a show at the bookshop, but no, they were supposed to do a show at the Pit. It was one or the other. So it's either this, draw the arrows both ways. The Pit was this theater on 28th Street at that time. And the blackout caused them to take their huge audience of 14 people and march down the street and set up shop and do the show. So they called me afterwards. They said, hey, there's something going on here. And then I sort of came in and started working with the guys and kind of creating a little bit of structure for the show. And Chris Jackson, who plays George Washington in Hamilton and played Benny in The Heights, was a member of Freestyle of Supreme back in 2003. David Diggs, who plays Lafayette and Jefferson, is a West Coast member of Freestyle of Supreme. James Eigelhart, who is in Aladdin right now, is a member of Freestyle of Supreme.
Oh, wow.
This kid, Utkar Shambudkar, who's a wonderful actor, was in it. So it was kind of this weird, kind of oddly talented group of people that kind of found each other through comedy and improv and hip hop.
And you kept them together.
I tried, yes. It was like managing a band.
Yeah.
And so, we went to we started at Ars Nova, we went to the Edinburgh Fringe, we went to Melbourne and did it there, we played the US Comedy Festival, we went to Montreal. So we would go and basically gig the way a band gigs. We would go and do 30 dates in 30 days.
Wow.
Like very much like driving in the van, sleeping in 2 rooms kind of feel, much more so than theater is. It really did feel like a band in that way. And we made a television show last year, and we still do it when we can, but it's a little bit harder to get the group together, but it's very much in the foundation of the dynamic of the relationships that are in Hamilton and Heights were often forged on the stages for Freestyle Supreme.
Oh God, that's great. What's your favorite part of directing, Tommy?
Finding the right people.
Auditioning?
Just the whole thing. Just putting it together, a creative team, finding actors, finding. Can
I ask you about auditioning? Do you
please.
like to audition actors and singers, and because they have to sing, they have to dance, they have to act?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Do you like the auditioning process? Would you change it?
I think the auditioning process is kind of broken.
What do you mean?
It's interesting I've directed a lot more plays than musicals, and when you ask somebody how they are when they walk in the room when you're auditioning for a musical, they can't believe anybody has spoken to them.
That's right.
Like they go to their spot and they get ready to sing like just over your head. And so the mentality in auditioning for musicals is something that I find painful to watch. So I try to embrace the humanity of any of this. And
So how do you do that?
Well, they're also trying to figure out if I'm the right person for them. Now, there's a weird power dynamic, right? Because I'm sitting behind a table and I can give the job, but I try to take as much time as I can. I generally audition probably 10% or 15% more than most other shows. So I always ask them to schedule a few more days. I also think that my casts, historically, have been 10 or 15% better than they would have been had I not had that time. So, the process of making a musical allows you to do something else. David Diggs has been working on Hamilton for 2.5 years. Chris Jackson has been around Hamilton for 3 years. Leslie Odom Jr. has been around Hamilton for a year plus. So usually when you're doing a play, you don't have the same kind of development process where you're doing a small reading and then maybe 4 months later another small reading and then maybe you do a workshop. Now Hamilton, we've used lots of different actors along the way, some of whom might be in a future production, some of whom might not be, but we would sort of find a room that we thought was safe to try stuff out, sit around a table and kick it around and do that. And what I try to do when I'm auditioning is just give a little more space for the actor and give a little more space for me and the writer to explore and have a conversation about what's on the page. And also for me, generally what I'm trying to do is see what an initial instinct is, interpretation for the actor, but then also how they take adjustments, how I can adjust. Like what's, some people it's mathematical, some people it's about images, some people it's about being really direct and precise. And so I try to see if I have a language with them that can be established quickly.
When you have a callback, what are you looking for then? That they've improved, that they've taken your notes, that they have brought something very different?
I like to see that they've held on to some of the things that we might have arrived at together.
Okay.
But I'll also generally give them new material. Often what happens in a callback is it's been me and the writer in the room, and then there's some more people in the room, right? The producer might be there for the callback. And so depending on how many times I've worked with them, because sometimes by the time I get to a callback, I might have seen them 3 or 4 times. If it's a musical in particular, you'll have really spent time. So I prefer more of a work session feel earlier, so that by the time we get in there, they know what they're doing. I can obviously make an adjustment. We can do what we need if there's something that I feel like we didn't hit. But I want them to feel as comfortable and strong and robust as they can to come in and do their best work. My job is to make the safest place for them to work, whether it's an audition and someone I never work with, or whether it's someone who has decided to spend 3 months of their life with me or a year.
How did you learn to do that? Make a safe place?
I'm getting better at it. I grew up playing sports, and I played soccer and baseball my whole life. And when I was very good at soccer until I was about 13, and then everyone else kept on growing, and I didn't. And so the game started to pass me by, but I could see the game even if I couldn't physically execute it. Mm-hmm. So most of my early jobs, I was a tutor or a camp counselor. And what I realized is, as I started coaching or tutoring, that I could see things that I couldn't necessarily do anymore. And that to me is fundamentally what directing is. So I can't do the things I'm asking people to do, but I know how to find people that can, challenge my ideas of what they can be, who are curious in the same way, and have skills that I don't have. So I sort of learned it through very team-oriented activities. Mm-hmm. And then, I directed a play about a football coach, and one of the reasons
Lombardi.
I
was going to ask you about that, because you directed Lombardi about Vince Lombardi, and Magic Bird about Magic Johnson and Larry Bird.
That's right. Yes.
And I thought, boy, and I knew that you were a sports person. That must have informed you.
Absolutely. And I was trying to make the 11-year-old version of me happy.
Oh, okay.
I was like, don't
Did
look now.
Did you meet them?
Yeah, Magic Johnson was in rehearsal a few times. And
Maddie?
Irvin. And he knew my name, which was weird.
Oh my God.
And
he was in rehearsal?
He was in rehearsal a couple times, yeah. I mean, Larry was a little more reticent, but that's kind of what
How was
Larry's
that for the actor who was playing Johnson? To have the real Johnson sitting there.
I mean, that was a weird day, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah. That was a weird day.
Wow.
But I directed Lombardi because I wanted to explore something on stage about leadership, and I didn't want to direct a play about a director. But by directing a play about a coach, I was basically exercising that part of my interest. And I'm fascinated by code switching and how to get 20 people on the same page but have 20 different relationships with them, or if you're working on a show that's like Hamilton, where there are 75 people coming to work every day, I need to have 75 different relationships to try to communicate one thing. And so that is endlessly fascinating, and it is something that I absolutely get better at doing. I've thought before, and I've said before, that part of the challenge of being a young director is getting hired. It's very hard to get hired by anybody else in your 20s. So nobody hired me in my 20s. My friends and I got together and made stuff for free. And so that's just the gig. It was like 8 years of doing 3 things so you can direct at night. And that's what I did. And, and something weird happened with Heights, and then on we went. But I was very aware early on that if I was going to be in the front of the room, that there was pressure on me to have solutions and answers. And I unburdened myself of that the more I did it. You made
a statement which I wrote down, and I don't even think I have to look at it because it made so much sense to me. I actually memorized it, I think, which is, I'm not interested in knowing the best idea in the room. I'm interested in identifying.
Right, in having the best idea in the room. Right.
You're not interested in having the best idea. I have.
Yes,
but
it doesn't have to be
identifying
me.
it.
Yeah, recognizing it is more important than having it. And so
You said it better than I did.
it took me a couple tries on that though.
Sorry.
But again, my longtime girlfriend, we've been together for 11 years, is a performer, and I was very aware if she got a call for an appointment for an audition, what the next 48 hours were going to be. And then I knew what would happen when she walked out of that audition. We've been together so long. I've seen that audition go well. I've seen it not go well. I've seen her be in a show for a year straight.
So she auditions for you first before she goes to the real audition?
No.
Yes, she does.
We actually are. It might be like, should I wear this or this?
Oh, okay.
Which, by the way, I love. And I was like, the small earrings. I gotta go. But it made me very aware, especially when she was in a long-running show, because at the beginning of our relationship, she was in a show for, over a year.
What is her name and what show?
Her name is Angela Christian. She was in a show called The Woman in White here, and she was in Thoroughly Modern Millie when we got together.
Oh, wow.
So she did the full run of Millie, 2.5 years, and then she did the Woman in White in London for a year, and then came here and did it for 3 or 4 months before it closed. So seeing what it took, seeing the preparation, the dedication, what it means to do something 8 times a week has had great impact on not only how I run an audition room or rehearsal room, but how often I participate once the show is open. Priscilla Lopez was an actress who I became close with. She was in Heights. And Priscilla, who's, I don't know, the best person ever, was in a lot of long-running shows, including Chorus Line. And so I talked to her about her approach after a show opens. And she said, my job now shifts from being a certain kind of creative force to being a custodian of the impulses that we found and making sure that they feel like they're happening on that Tuesday and on that Wednesday mat. And by the way, Priscilla did, I think, like 600 shows in a row. I mean, she never missed.
Right.
And that mentality, which my Aunt Sally had, which Angie has, which Priscilla has, which is much more my ethos.
Right.
You have to take care of yourself and stay healthy. But the idea of transitioning beyond the opening of a show, when you're a young director, you're just trying to hope the thing runs for like 3 performances, right? Opening, the middle of the run, and then closing are in 3 days. And I did lots and lots of shows like that. When you have a show that actually runs, my desire to be a part of the process afterwards and to go and watch the show.
Yes.
I was at Heights 2 or 3 times a week until the end of the run. Absolutely.
Oh, you were. Wow.
If I went away for a month, I was away for a month, and the show didn't need me.
And did you still give notes?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But there's an actor that I wouldn't give a note to for 6 months, but we would talk about if his dog was getting healthy. And then there was an actor who would want me to watch that one scene, and we talk about those 2 lines for a year. And so it needs to be this with Bob and this with Julie.
Specific to the specific need of the
person. Every dressing room is a different relationship.
Yeah.
And I have to, and sometimes those dressing rooms are right next to each other. And so I have to be this other version of myself, which is still me, that needs to give them what they need. And so that's one of the things I try to continue to improve and get better.
You just said what a good parent should be able to do. Now, here's all these questions I have. Oh, here's another statement you make that I wrote down because I loved it. I've always been fascinated by what came before, and I think it's essential to understand the sequence of events that adds up to our present tense. Each moment in the text is the result of a given character's experience, and I learned to respect and fully explore every perspective through my studies. Now, I remember when I studied with Uta
That guy sounds great.
Did you understand what you wrote? No.
Yeah, like one of those things made sense to me.
I mean, one of the things that I learned from my teacher, Uta Hagen, was you couldn't just hit the stage. You had to know not only what happened before the play begins for the character, but just what happened just before you hit the stage, happened just before you enter what just happened. You have to be that specific. It seems like that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
And do you take your actors through that process in rehearsal? Do you each character say, what happened before? Let's discuss how she got the way she got?
It depends on the actor. One of the things that I spent most of my 20s, again, because I came to this so late, feeling like I was behind. So it was, I have to watch every movie and go see every play and read every book. And I sort of gave myself this.
It never stops.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, this is just what it's going to be like. And you can't see them all, guys.
No.
You can't see them all.
You can't afford most of them. Hello.
Yes, that's true. So it depends on the actor. Some actors like to really go deep on that kind of stuff, and I'm always willing to have the conversation, but I want it to be their process that I'm following instead of imposing my own. So, and you know, if you do a show, there are 21 people on stage in Hamilton. Not everybody's getting to stage in a very different way. And there's somebody who shows up at half hour, right? And there's someone who gets dressed at 5, and there's someone who's been in costume since 45 minutes before.
Born. Yeah.
And so I just, you know, my job is to try to support whatever version it works best for them.
Well, what happens on the first rehearsal? Everybody's gathered together. Let's take Hamilton just because. So we're all sitting around a table, or do you do a table read?
I tend to not do a table read for a musical until like the second or third day, because I want us to have spent some time with the music and spend some time with the material. So it's not just, look what I wore to the first day of school. I tend to protect the room, and I don't like a lot of other people in the room that aren't involved with the making of the show. So what I also respect, though, is, especially if you're working in institutional theater, it's the same thing. At our first rehearsal for Hamilton, we stood in a circle in the lobby of the public, and there were 125 people there, some of whom I would not see again, right, because they work in different parts of the building.
Right.
But it's a reminder to our company. So our company is 25 people.
Right.
The creative team is another 15 people. There's 160 people standing there that are all going to bust their ass to make this show.
Right.
So I want everybody to feel like they're participating in that.
Nice.
Once we move into the room, I'm a lot more selective with who I want to be in the room.
Yes.
So first day of rehearsal for a play, I find that often like you're reading it to kind of get through the reading. So I thought, you know, in the last few things I've done, let's spend some time working on this, and then day 2, that second half of the afternoon, maybe you'll sit and read it. If it's a musical, maybe that third day. So I like to jump in with the work. The good thing about working on a musical, especially, well, Hamilton's through composed, so there's no libretto in a traditional sense. There's no book scenes, but it's nice on a musical to, Alex Lacamoire, who is our music director and worked on Heights with me and is one of my dearest friends and absolutely exceptional at what he does.
Was he at the piano when they went to Obama?
Yeah. Yeah, he is a moonbeam of joy, that guy. He's also our orchestrator and our co-arranger on this.
He's fantastic.
And, he and I have a very similar energy. So the first day of rehearsal, we all get together. I don't do like a big model presentation. I don't walk us through all of the costumes. I just want to get to work. So it'll be like, let's gather around the piano and let's start to learn music. So that's my favorite thing to do. Those first couple of days when you work on a musical, it's nice to be a director because you're kind of floating around being like, yeah. And then you say like one smart thing and then like leave for like, 20 minutes.
So you do the music first?
We do music first, yeah.
Now, what do you want the actor, singer, dancer, performer to have already worked on that first rehearsal? What do you expect they've already done?
I'll expect that they've laid some foundation, but that they haven't gotten to a place where they feel like they're done building. Because some people, day one is the performance, right? Like you've been at the table read and you're like, oh, if we're starting there, and then 3 weeks later you're like, oh, we're actually just trying to get back to there. And so, because of the density of the physical vocabulary of Hamilton in particular, it wasn't until we got up that it could really start to come together. When you're working on a play, I like to stage very quickly to give a shape. So I'll try to stage the play by the end of the first week and have us stumble through the whole thing.
Now, by staging the play, do you let the actors lead you to what they want to go?
Yeah.
Or do you come in and say, I'd like you to move there?
No, I don't do that. I have an idea of something. I might suggest, I have opinions about a lot of things, but I'm not going to stifle someone's impulse that they have to, especially like on day 3. One of the things I say a lot and I think about a lot is, day 3 is day 3. I don't need to be on day 4 yet. I would like to be beyond where we were on day 2, but sometimes it's an inch, sometimes it's a foot. But really taking each day as it comes, and one of the things that I also believe in, it's like sometimes you can't crack it and it's 5 o'clock and the day's over. Like, put it away, it'll be there the next, so this idea that you have to figure it out now, that's not what rehearsal is for me in that way. I don't have a clock in my head of where we're supposed to be. I think of it as, I say that I want to go and touch the other side of the pool. That's what that first crazy stumble through is, when everyone's like, we're never going to make it, and then you get through it, and then you figure out how to run the race.
Swim it.
Or swim the race, exactly.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten lost
In what way?
in directing? I mean, where you just can't find it, and it's grown into a monster in its way. Maybe you don't want to deal with that. That's okay.
No, there have been moments that have gotten away from me. I think that.
What do you do? Do you have a mentor?
I do have mentors. I listen. I try to quiet all the other voices and listen to my impulses. That's what I try to do. And the older I get, the easier it is for me to tune out all the stuff and all the noise and listen to what Edward G. Robinson called that little man in your gut in Double Indemnity. So there's this thing that we all have, and sometimes we don't listen to it, and then you find yourself in shitty situations, right? And those are called your instincts. And if that flag is flying,
but if your instinct's voice is self-deprecating and attacking.
Yeah, mine isn't like that.
Oh, wow. I would like your voice to talk to my voice.
Yeah, it's these dulcet tones, whispering.
Do you meditate?
I don't meditate.
Okay, well,
but I think about it sometimes.
I know, me too. What do you know now that you wish you would have known then?
I remember when I was working on the early version of Heights. This was probably like 2003, so I was 27 or something like that. And we were doing these workshops, and someone said to me, all right, that's good, but we're not gonna be able to get together for 6 months. And I said, 6 months? I mean, it's gone, it's gonna dissipate. And I remember someone who is in their 60s, who's like a friend, not someone I know that well, said, please, 6 months is nothing. And there's an interesting paradox there, right? Because we're trying to be in the moment. We're trying to live our life with the miracle of just getting through the day is not lost on me. And yet, sometimes you'll talk about January like it's tomorrow. Yeah. And so it's really just about how to have perspective on time. That's the thing that I think I've gained over just by having more road behind me.
Yeah. Do you let actors improvise a scene? Like let's talk about a drama, When You Come to Die.
When I Come to Die, yeah.
So if a scene isn't working, let's say emotionally, do you let the actor improvise? Do you?
If this was a play I did at Lincoln Center about 3 or 4 years ago. Chris Chalk, who's a wonderful actor, played the lead. And it's about a guy in the first scene who
Nathan
Lewis Jackson wrote it.
Nathan Lewis Jackson, yeah.
And then this guy named David Patrick Kelly was in it,
right?
Who you guys all know is like the bad guy from every 80s movie. It was a great company. Amanda Warren, Neil Huff, and Michael Balderrama. In each of them, David was a guy. Do you guys know who David Patrick Kelly is? He's like 5'4". He's like the bad guy in The Crow. I mean, like you know who he is. And he'd just be like, brother, never mind, I'll show you. Like, he would we would not talk about anything. He would just go and do it. and the play was one where it took place in these jail cells. We played it with no walls, but they wanted to be, and I asked them to be on stage from half hour on. No young directors.
But why did you do that? Why did you do that?
They asked me if it would be okay to try, and it's something I'd thought about, but I didn't want to. I mean, I'm also practical. It's like, you have to live your life and go to the bathroom, and then you're on stage for 90 minutes and all that other stuff. But they both asked if they could do it, and obviously it couldn't be one and not the other. These two guys, and everything that happened from 7:30 to 8 was stuff that they wanted to find, and which completely improvisational, and was not the same every night.
Right.
Now, someone like Chris, who has a very rigorous process of his own, is not prone to using improv to unlock it. But I did another play called Brokology, by the same writer, and there's this actor named Wendell Pierce, this guy named Francois Baptiste, and Alano Miller, and they all liked to improv. I mean, they like to do that. So I won't spend hours doing it, but once we'd also played the scene, and I don't want something to dry out, sometimes I'll ask to just kind of throw the language out and just see if we can play it. And in that show in particular, we sometimes would do, give me 10 minutes into the scene, and then start the scene, and give me the 5 minutes afterwards. So they liked working in that way. And we were also at a place with that play, because we'd done it once before, that we could feel liberated enough to do so. Whereas when I Come to Die, we got 8 new pages a day, and it was sort of like, what scene are we in? Yeah.
Oh dear. Now, what kind of research did you do? Did you go to a prison? Did you?
I had been to some penitentiaries for another project that I was working on, and which still felt very present for me. So I watch a lot of stuff. I'll go online. Unfortunately, especially with prison culture, it's that sort of institutionalization and Lockup and all those shows are everywhere. So I'll spend time with it. But my feeling about all of that is it's never about walking into the room and talking about what I know. Because at the end of the day, they got to go on stage and make the thing.
Yeah.
And so I just want to have it as a resource. I just want to be able to have the conversation. There are things that I might ask someone to read or to check out, but I try not to be prescriptive with those kinds of things. I want to let them find their way in. David Patrick Kelly was a big reader and would give me books. And Chris was someone who just kind of wanted to play it and had another reservoir to draw from.
How is it for you to be directing like Lin-Manuel Miranda? He wrote it. He's in it. What's the challenge as a director for you? Are you the dramaturg? I mean, in other words, it's...
Yeah,
he wrote it and he's in it.
Yes, I'm certainly... the challenge is that I can't do this. Can't believe it. Oh, never mind.
There's nobody next to you.
He's not next to me.
He's not next to you.
My choreographer will be next to me. But when we did Heights, one of the very early conversations I had with Lin, I suggested that he play Usnavi until we found someone better. So he kept on playing Usnavi, and the part got bigger and bigger. And I remember saying to him at some point once the show was open, I can't wait for the next one. It'll be so fun. We can sit in the dark and we can try to crack it together. And he's like, absolutely. And then he played me the first song, the one he did at the White House. And I said, I can't wait for the next one. Lin is very good about being on stage as an actor and unplugging that part of his brain. I think if you were to ask Lin, I think he identifies as a writer first. Oh, yeah. So I've definitely seen him in moments when I know that he's trying to solve something in Act 2, in previews like that. I know what that look is, but he's actually remarkably efficient at just being able to drop in and go and do the thing. On Heights, again, my choreographer is obviously someone who's very important to me in terms of storytelling. My producers are often very gifted with story. Oscar Eustis at the Public, obviously, is a great dramaturg in its own right. But there was a light cue idea that Alex Lackamore suggested, my music director. It was just a moment, and Andy and I had stared at it, and Alex said, "Well, what if you try this, and then it comes in there?" It's like, great, and that's what's in the show. Wow. So there are 700 light cues in the show. But that one, we couldn't crack it. Alex could, and so I try to listen to the ideas from that core group. But when I first started working on Hamilton, it was me and Lin having a warm beverage and talking about this thing and reading the book and going through it and saying, hey, would this be a good song? Or what about her? Or what about him? And we sort of both wrote down the things that we were drawn to and then compared notes. And he said, I really want to musicalize this. It's really important to me that Eliza does this, and so we just would sort of share and swap. And then he's also very trusting at this point with the four of us, me, Andy, and Alex, as well as our producers, Jeffrey Seller and Oscar, at bringing something that's not fully formed. And that's okay. Sometimes it's a verse and a chorus, sometimes it's a verse, sometimes it's 4 lines, sometimes it's a musical idea, and we'll respond to that as well.
So what types of direction?
All the same things as if they were just playing the scene. And we've at that point.
I don't know what you're thinking. I'm not sure what your intention is.
Yeah, because the internal tempo rhythm of a line is going to be related to often the emotional temperature of the actor. Because there's something already provided by the tempo and the music that sometimes that works. Sometimes it's about just grabbing the rope and holding on. And then seeing where it takes you. Yeah. Same thing with language, whether you're doing Shakespeare or more sort of contemporary language.
If a performer can't give you emotionally what you think should be there, do you have any kind of method in which to extract that from them? Do you have them talk about their childhood? Or
Just go like full Dustin Hoffman, Kramer versus Kramer.
Well, you know,
No, I don't. It depends. Again, I'm not trying to punch. It depends on the actor.
Yeah.
There's a moment at the very end of Hamilton
Yes.
That Eliza has, which was something that came out of watching the show. It's really the very last moment for Eliza, and I had an idea of what it might feel like or sound like from being outside of the thing, and so I talked to Pippa about what I thought she might be seeing or what that moment, like sort of in larger gestures about that, and then she could take one that made sense to her and figure out how to manifest that and play it every night. So it just depends. It depends on the actor. With Lin, I can be technical in a very specific way because of the depth of our relationship.
Yeah.
And Lin always looks tired and sad, so it always looks like he's emotional. He does look a little tired and sad.
You made this.
He's not though. He's very happy.
Oh, I can imagine. No, I'm just kidding. One of the things that is really vital to me, you said, I think, is to try and do theater for people that aren't often invited to the theater-ish, right? And I think this play fits very much into that part of what I believe. Was that in the Heights or Hamilton, or do you remember?
I think I said it about Heights, but it's what I
feel.
It's what I feel about everything.
So how do you? Now the irony is that this is such a huge hit. Most people can't afford to see it.
Right. No, I mean.
What are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts on it are, it was one of the reasons we wanted to get the album out. Most people experience things from the album, right? I mean, like just Broadway shows in general.
Wow.
That album is $20. Everybody can get $20, right? Like if you can go see one movie a year, you can buy one album a year.
Is there going to be a film of it?
Maybe, but like not for a while. So there's a couple things. One is we have this row of seats in the front, which are $10, the cheapest ticket on Broadway. And it's a lottery, and you have to go and you put your name in. It's a thing, right?
Right.
And so that does not serve the whole deal. That's what we thought we could do at that moment. We have an initiative that we're in the process of putting together that will become more clear in the next week or so for school kids to have something that is subsidized. So thousands and thousands of kids every year can have their schools pay a $10 ticket. We're going to have someone is going to underwrite this, and we're in the process of making it. And so that to me, because we wanted to make a show about everyone for everyone. Now something strange happened with this show, and it became a show hopefully about everyone that not everyone can go and see. And so that's what we're trying to grapple with. But I know that the initiatives that we're starting will hopefully then just become commonplace. We're not doing this for our show. We're doing it so every show can do this.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Well,
no, yay. That's the tradition. That's the tradition that Joe Papp started.
Well, and I was talking to Oscar Eustis this morning about Shakespeare in the Park. And he said, Shakespeare in the Park is one of the few, if only, places where they give it away, right?
Yes.
And everyone says, but that's just there. And he says, no, it's not just there.
Right.
And this is not supposed to be an anomaly or an outlier. This is supposed to be a model. And so there are people that are trying to do this. One of the reasons we partnered with the public was because of that.
Yes.
That ethos that exists down there, that Oscar certainly imbues, that was started by Papp and continues through him.
I hope that happens.
Sorry, I didn't mean I was talking to him this morning.
No, I was just going to say call Donald Trump, but never mind.
The show's like a pretty big deal. That little voice is like, why would you say that?
So here's some directors. Tommy, how do you find work as a director?
Make it yourself.
Hello. Make it yourself.
Make it yourself. Find a revival you want to do. Find a writer that you love. Just make it, and make it anywhere.
If somebody brought you a compelling classic play that did not have a diverse cast, and if someone else brought you not a great play but it had a diverse cast, what do you think you'd choose? That's a stupid thing.
What's the third option?
Never mind.
I will say this. There's been a lot of conversation about the casting of Hamilton, which is something that was very much by design. It's actually, I feel it's the antithesis of colorblind. It's been described as colorblind, but the show is not colorblind casting. The show is very intentionally cast and very specifically cast. Our idea there was, as we felt then and as we've said since, to eliminate any distance between then and now.
Yes.
How do we explode whatever our preconceptions might have been, and how do we try to bring an audience out there as close as we can to this story and give it immediacy. And that was the way that we felt we could do that. How that impacts other people's casting was not the question in our mind. The question was, for this show, if we can do this, and if someone can say, well, then George Washington looks like him, and Eliza Schuyler looks like her. And the other thing that I think is not often talked about with our show, which I hope gets talked about more, and I give our choreographer Andy a lot of credit for this, is for those of you that have seen the show, and this doesn't give anything away if you haven't, the men and the women are both soldiers. They wear the same outfits, they do the same choreography. There is no distinction there, and that was also very intentional. This is not, the women were not at home on the Widow's Walk worrying.
Right.
They were fighting, and they were creating this country as well. Right. And so that unity and that kind of uniformity, when you watch the show, is the other thing that I feel like people haven't quite grabbed onto, because it's not in the principal roles. But our ensemble, which is as fine as ensembles ever existed, and I mean the entire company, this is not principals and ensemble. No. This is a group of storytellers, which is why the bow is the way the bow is in our show, which is why this is not when we were designing the show, Paul Taswell was my costume designer. Paul and I have worked together a lot. And what we tried to do was, the neck down was then, the head up is now. So it's real hair. There's a couple wigs in the show that looks like the people's real hair for maintenance issues, but that was really important to us also, that intersection. Everything is very period authentic, but it moves like now, and we relate to it the way we relate to things now.
They're human beings.
That's right.
You're not doing a period
and
play.
there's no skin in our show from the waist down.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I don't think anyone would say that our show isn't sensual and sexual. Right. Our show is not about those things, but the fact is, like, the women wear pants, the men wear pants. The men wear boots, the women wear boots. And not for every number, of course, but that was something we thought about also very deeply.
Well, now, I wanted to say, what do you do between jobs? But I'm not sure that's a good enough question.
Well, I will say this for the directors and just for everybody in the room. I think of directing as you're running a kitchen, and sometimes you're defrosting something, and sometimes it's already on the stove, sometimes it's in the oven, something is like laid out on the counter, and something is just a recipe. And all of those things are happening simultaneously, because it might not defrost right, you might burn it, who knows? So, ever since I got out of school, I was always doing 5 or 6 things. And all at various places in development, some of which
all having to do with directing, or not? You're not talking about you were acting and you were writing.
No, but
you did write one play.
I wrote plays when no one was giving me plays, so I wrote my early stuff.
What made you switch?
My friends are better writers. But I was producing for my friends when I wasn't directing. Yes. I would read the stage directions. I would play a walk-on part. Sure, I would do whatever. Right. I knew I didn't want to do those things, but I also knew that making theater mattered to me, and I didn't need to be the person in the front of the room for all of that. Yeah. So I took great pride when I was a PA or an ASM. This sounds, I don't know, corny to say, but if my job was to sweep the stage, I would sweep the stage and mop the stage as efficiently and professionally as I could, and I would figure out a way to do it better the next day, because that was my gig. And so when you grow up playing sports on a team, and I used to be in the middle, and then as I got older, or people passed me by, and I started to shift to the side, I was like, I still have a job. It's just not playing 90 minutes. Now it's playing 30 minutes and making sure the person there can be spelled so they can, it's like, I just find your role. Sometimes it's to carry the water, sometimes it's to score. And so that's my feeling about theater in general.
Well, that's beautifully put and very inspirational. This is the last question. Yeah. What aspect of yourself has, to your surprise, become more accessible?
I think that the thing that's probably the consistent through line in most of the things I do is about legacy. I mean, it's about what we leave behind. And my relationship to Hamilton, the man, and to Lin, and one of the things that we talked about very early when we were making it and just got to know each other, is the finite nature of all of this is something that I've always been drawn to and terrified by. And so the idea of trying to not just make impressions on people, but make connections with people and go deeper with fewer, but still try to expose yourself to newer things. So, I mean, most of this is all grappling with my mortality. I mean, and so I think, watching this show night after night and in making the show, I think that's the thing that I became more intensely aware of is, I turned 40 in a couple years, and I'm going to do this for the next 100 years, I hope. And my great aunt was, who was working, until into her 80s, was a great source of inspiration and energy for me. But I also know that, I'm at a time right now where, like, it's not I'm not like the kid who's like made something. It's not like there's nothing impressive. Like, I'm an adult, I should be good at this. So like I'm now at a place where it's like I feel like I have the ability to draw on things that I didn't have, and I hope there's way more road ahead for me to go and make things. Because the other thing that I don't know the answer to, like, this isn't going to happen again, but it happened and it's still happening. So I have to participate in that and allow myself to participate in that and not think about if the next thing is this or not. I never thought about that. I never said I have to be here by then. I've never thought about things like that. But I have national tours that I need to do. I need to go and make this show again so people in Chicago and people in San Francisco and Seattle and Boston and Philadelphia who can't get here. That's something I felt when Heights went on tour. There's something about taking your show and going to where you live and let them wake up in their bed and go to sleep in their bed instead of saying, come here and get it, that I took an enormous satisfaction in. I loved going to Tempe with the show or to Boston with the show or to Minneapolis, and everybody there in part of their day was able to live their own life and have the show be served to them.
Being on the road, you're bringing back the theater.
Well, we're a little part. We're trying. We're trying.
No, when people used to go on the road a lot.
Yeah. That was the thing.
You're just wonderful.
Oh.
I'm going to open this up now to people. And
how'd we do, guys? All right? We're some of us still with us?
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Just start at the top and work through. The question...
Work.
Yeah, work.
Instead of doing a straight through.
Yeah, work. I tend to, not always. It depends on, I'm about to do a play. Well, it's interesting. There's this strange thing that happens as you continue to work where I take a lot of pride in casting, and I think that people might say what they say about my shows. It's generally not a comment about whether the right people were telling the story. Like that I can usually get pretty close. But what happens in this particular moment in time is you end up having to cast people sometimes off of a meeting, right?
Oh.
Or it's only an offer. So you haven't had the luxury of spending a year and a half hearing their voice, knowing what that rhythm is, getting a sense of their energy. You're meeting them and then not hearing them on the material. So sometimes that first reading is, hi, my name's Tommy, basically. And my name is Jim, and let's go and do this thing. So that's a little bit different. I'm doing a couple plays in the spring, and one of them I will have cast through very traditional sort of casting process, and the other one will be some people that I now know, but I didn't know and didn't get to know them through the work. So
people who are prominent, you mean?
Yeah, or just people that are, just for whatever reason, that happens sometimes. And it is very important to me. I'm doing a live production of Grease for Fox. Because live television is really easy. So I was like, yeah, I should do that. So I started working on this last September. So it was supposed to happen in May and ended up moving for some scheduling stuff. So I've been working on it for 14 or 15 months, and this is live television. And I, again, didn't grow up doing that, but those Playhouse 90, those Philco, those US Steel, I became obsessed with those things when I started getting into theater. This idea of live television,
live.
Rod Serling and patterns and all these things. I mean, it was Mickey Rooney, and it was so really, and that to me is old school. I love that because that's where all the directors, Arthur Penn and Spielberg and all these guys came up doing that, directing, Frankenheimer.
Right.
So I thought, all right, I'll throw my hat in the ring. So Grease is a known thing, right? I would guess that everybody here can sing at least 95% of that score. I tend to work on new material, and so I wanted to put myself in a position where I was doing something I hadn't done. I'd certainly never done live television like this. It's only happened twice in the last 50 years, really, which was Peter Pan and Sound of Music. I'm fascinated by event and sports and the Olympics and the things that happen in the moment. And as we were putting the show together, and we're almost done cast with the cast, and I'm very, very proud of the cast and excited about the cast. And one of the things that we insisted on was, if anybody is going to be in this particular thing, like, they're coming and spending an hour with me. Because I'm trying to protect them as well as I'm trying to protect myself. Because when that red light goes on, like this is live. Like, this shit is like live. And
as opposed to anything else, when the red light goes on in television and camera, it means go,
right.
not stop.
Yes.
Which anyway.
So as you learn when you do it.
I'll tell the story, but not now.
So all that to say, like, when I go and do my first day of rehearsal for that, because I don't have everybody the whole time and I have to kind of stagger rehearsal, I want to work for a little bit, get in there on day 3 and say, here's what we've got, and now we can kind of break up and go do our thing. When I'm working on a play, I want to, spend, I think of, I tend to rehearse a straight play. I like the 6-hour rehearsal. So I'll usually rehearse 6 hours out of 7 because I like a lunch break. Whereas if you're doing a musical, you rehearse 7 out of 8 because you need every minute you can get. So sometimes you do like a straight 6. I feel like it, again, because I work fast, I don't want to drive the thing out. And I try to rehearse a play for only about 2.5 weeks. Which is pretty fast. Wow. And then I want more previews. I want to get in front of an audience and have more. So I usually have an extra week of previews. And all theaters are happy because they're selling tickets and making money. Right. Be smart, guys. And those first couple are like a little scary, but like, you know what you're doing. So if a day is broken up into 2 halves, on the first day of rehearsal, we'll work from the top, that first half, lunch, work the second half, maybe then like kind of work through the whole thing, and then end the second day, like, let's just start at the top and go. That's generally how I do a play. A few things. One is who.
Who is it?
Because I have a policy of not working with assholes. And I won't.
How do you manage that?
Because the nice thing now is I have a little bit of choice in the matter.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that.
But I did. But it's like, I put the room together, so it's on me. And if you're an actor and you show up and I'm Tommy and you're you, like, now we're supposed to be in love, right? Like, and so that's it. Hi. But my job is to protect you, and my job is to protect him, and try to find people whose energy I think can be similar. So the who is very important to me. It's different with a play and a musical, because a musical takes me about 5 or 6 years, and so I'm a little choosier with that. Whereas on a play, basically a play from soup to nuts is generally about a year. And that's a long time. So the criteria is the same, which is, if I feel in my gut that I have to do it, I do it. If I have to convince myself, I can't make myself fall in love. And the project deserves better, and the writer deserves better, and the producer deserves better. So I say no a lot more than I say yes. And I think that that's fair to everyone. I don't want to. It takes too much, and then I also feel like, that you start to become aware of what it requires from you, and I don't know that that's an infinite supply, and so I want to try to choose carefully.
It's hard to know, though, sometimes when you're afraid of doing something. You say, I don't want to do it, but it's not because you really don't want to do it, it's because you're afraid of doing it.
Well, I figure if I'm doing live television, then at least I know, like, I've run slightly towards my fear. At least I feel like I can get like a little leeway after this one.
Oh, God, yeah.
Just the internet falls over. There was a consistent and constant conversation about authenticity, but it was generally always between me and Lin and our producers and Ron Chernow.
He was there.
Yeah, Ron was around a lot.
Oh, that's nice.
But around in the way that he would come in, he wasn't in rehearsal every day, but he would come see read-throughs and things like that, and obviously all those early previews. So with the company, Javier Munoz, who plays Hamilton once a week, has not read the whole book. That was his choice. Lin read the book a few times. And then Lin also read 50 books around it. And some, Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Aaron Burr, has read many, many things. Chris Jackson was a crazy history buff going into this and had a different wealth of knowledge. So it depends on the actor. I know that the book was very important for Pippa Sue, who plays Eliza. So authenticity and truth matter to us, and in some ways, we wanted to not we never wanted the show to be event, because that's not a story. But Ron wrote a book, but Ron was trained as a novelist. So Ron wrote a book about a guy who had a passion and he had a flaw, and they were right next to each other. And one of them got him out, and then it's the same thing that got him killed. So that's the arc of tragedy. So we knew we had that. There's very, very little in the show that is not historically accurate. And I can tell you what those things are, because it was incredibly important that the person who knew the world could nod their head. Just like you want the hip hop head to nod, just like you want the sports person to be like, that's right. Like, you want that thing to ring true.
You want to be able to believe in it and put all 4 feet in it.
And we didn't want anything to get in the way of that. I have a very strong sense of what the essence of that character is, but in terms of physicality and appearance, I'm very open. I have a theory, right? If you put the 10 smartest people in the room, you're going to rank them 1 through 10, right? So if you make 10 of something or 5 of something, like, our brain puts them in order. It's why I tend not to do, like plays with like 3 parts. Because people are like, oh, I like the second, but the third one didn't work. I did like the first, right? Like, you immediately start to, it's why we like second acts better than first acts. Like, we always do this, right? So the reality is, I've made some things that might have not reached the ideal that I was trying to reach in terms of honoring the playwright's work, or the commitment I made to that. But I certainly, I'm proud of everything I've done. And it's not about, because the only thing I would not be proud of is my actions. The work is the work, and that's the thing that I say often, and I said to this company a lot, especially as stuff was getting kind of crazy outside of the building, is the only thing that we can, or one of the few things we can control, is our effort and our attitude. We can't control how people are going to receive the show, but let's not be outworked, and let's keep our head down and know that we can make this sharper and deeper than it was the day before. So I might have made some work that was a little fuzzier or less clear or a little blurrier, but it was this relationship that I now have that I didn't. It was that time when I thought maybe that was a good idea and it wasn't, that you sort of slough all that stuff off. You distill it down to the things you learned, and then that's what goes in your mental backpack, into the next room. I did a musical about a bunch of people at the top of Manhattan that no one ever thought about. So there was a lot of skepticism and a lot of hesitation, and you just keep going. Just go through it, because if they don't get it, then they'll either find their way there or they won't. But if you're looking for people to partner with to roll that boulder up a hill, find your tribe. Find the people that will, and that doesn't mean people that will always say yes. It just means people that get what you're talking about and understand it. And then I made that one, and then there was an idea about the Founding Fathers with contemporary music, and we got the same looks. I mean, in 2009 and 2010, this was not the idea that it was, you know what I mean? Like, so just keep going through it. My job as a director, I feel, is to be the audience until there is an audience. And then my job is to listen to the audience and distill what they have to say. I'm not interested, if 100 people come see my show, I'm not the guy out there asking 100 different people their opinion, because I actually don't really care, because it's too much noise. But if you put 100 people together in the dark, that I care about. That has real utility. Because 100 people together in the dark, and it's not always, right? Like, we know, like, that Tuesday. But if you do it enough, you know what to listen to. And 100 people in the dark, that's something worth listening to. So I think the audience is always smarter than we give them credit for. And this show is a testament to our faith in the audience. you'll get it. I mean, and everybody will get it. And it's not because we didn't diminish or dilute the authenticity or the density of the idea to make it for everyone. We just said, come on. And as I've said a few times about Lin, and it's something that I tried to help him with on this, one of Lin's great gifts is his spirit of generosity. Lin wrote better music for everybody in the show, and he wrote it first. But Lin's like the host who then eats last. The last thing that was written was Hamilton's side of the duel. Everybody else gets to eat first. But Lin also had an idea that I feel very deeply, which is not I'm up here and you're down there. This is not someone telling you how smart he is. He's saying, I'm over here and you might be right there. Let's build a bridge. I'm going to show you how to build a bridge. We're going to make an opening number that's like a prologue for Shakespeare. So if your ear doesn't know what this is, I bet you by the time that prologue ends, you're going to know what this is. So let's build a bridge. Let's make a ladder, whatever the thing is. I like bridge because it means we're on the same level. And come over here. It's not just, wow, look at him up there. And so that's another way that I can sort of, try to throw my arms around the audience and celebrate the audience, because we don't exist without them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.